Hello and welcome to a new Dominion preview video. Been a little while since I've done one of these, but in fairness, there was a lot last year, and there's going to be a new expansion coming up in the not too distant future. But today we have a new promo card, and that card is Marchland. I mean, I'm saying that as if anybody watching this video doesn't already know about it and hasn't already read it, but hey, whatever, it's fine. So yeah, I just wanted to give my thoughts on this new card, and it's a Silk Road replacement, very obviously. Silk Road was 4-cost victory card worth 1 VP per 4 victory cards you have rounded down. So this one is a 5-cost, and it's worth 1 per 3 victory cards you have rounded down. And then when you gain it, you get a buy back. Well, not necessarily back. Obviously, if you gain it with a gainer, then you're just getting a buy. And then you can discard any number of cards for +1 coin each. So a couple of things to talk about here. First of all, if we compare this to Silk Road, the big downside is that it costs 5 rather than 4, so you can't gain it with workshops. The fact that it's more expensive just to buy is, of course, also relevant, but I think less relevant than the fact that you can't gain it with workshops. That's a pretty big deal, in particular with cards like Groom and Weaver that are very good at aggressively piling. In particular, like Groom, you have the +1 card, +1 action, and Weaver would actually trigger off of Marchland itself. Like if you had a handful of Weavers, you could play 1 Weaver, gain 1, and then you could discard all the other ones to gain more of them, except that you can't do that unless you have cost reduction. So I think that's probably a pretty good thing, honestly. Those rush games can be a little silly, and I don't think avoiding that is a bad thing by any means. But yeah, so it is more expensive than Silk Road. It's also more efficient VP wise. That being said, it's not that efficient. So like if you think about the typical game of Dominion, in terms of greening and where that tends to end up, without any other alt VP on the board, if you're ending on provinces and you're not 3 piling, then your expected number of provinces is 4. And so if you add in a couple of these, you have 4 provinces and 2 marchlands. 4 provinces and 2 duchies might be like a somewhat typical amount to have, depending on how things go. I mean, it's more of an average. Like, it's probably not actually typical to have like exactly 4 provinces and 2 duchies, but maybe 3 or 5 provinces. But the point is that you have 6 victory cards and your marchlands are only worth 2, and they're not that close to being worth 3 at that point. You need to get 3 more victory cards. So having them even be equal to, let alone beating duchies, is not going to be that easy. That said, the presence of Marchland does increase the number of victory cards available in a kingdom, so it will push the game in that direction. So I think in practice it probably will generally be worth about as much as duchy, but that in and of itself isn't necessarily like that exciting. It is potentially exciting that it gives you the buyback. So like if you have 10 coins in 1 buy, or even if you just have 9 coins in 1 buy, or 7 coins in 1 buy, and maybe you have like a 1 or 2 junk cards in your hand, you can potentially get some value out of the buy rebate in that situation. I mean, maybe you would just want to buy a province, but if there like maybe there's 2 provinces left and you don't want to buy the province, and then you can get one of these and get some more value out of it relative to just buying a duchy. So that's potentially nice. But I think the big thing that is going to make this card tick is when you can like really take advantage of one or both of the discard synergy, and then the like having a lot of victory cards in the kingdoms. Like if there's another victory card pile, or if it's particularly easy to gain a bunch of duchies or estate because like there's Shepherd, or there's something where you can put them in exile, or there's so like I don't know. I mean, this like Marchland probably makes Enclave better. Is like the first thing that came to mind. But even just like having an exile card like Bounty Hunter or Sanctuary, it all will make that more practical. Being or having something like Inheritance, where you want the estates in your deck anyway. A card like Nobles, where or Mill, where you want that card in your deck anyway. And then in terms of the discard synergy, because in the typical case, this is going to be in your buy phase. You're going to have played most of your cards, and you're not generally going to have that many cards left. So I think in the average case, the discard part is not going to be that strong. Obviously you're not going to be wanting to buy Marchland early in the game when you might still have estates left. So and then later in the game you will have thinned your estates, but you might have like a province or another Marchland or something you can discard. And if you're only buying one of them, it effectively discounts the cost. So that's that is nice. But if you can, if you have enough draw that you can afford to stuff a bunch of green into your deck, you can get value out of that. If you have like discard synergy with Village Green or Trail or Weaver or something like that, you can discard those and you can get some coins and you can get some benefit out of it. But then like the real power situation, and this is going to be rare for sure, but is if you have a way to gain this card during your action phase, and you can use it as like a draw to X card. So you discard like 4 cards or something, and then you play like a Cursed Village or something like that. I mean, it's going to be way harder to make that work than even something like Cursed Village and Vault, which is like, I mean, that sort of thing doesn't come up that often anyway. But although I personally have had a kind of a weirdly high number of games in the past like year or so where Vault was good, but like you're gonna have to do a lot more work. So like this is not going to come up that often, but it is like kind of the dream with this card. I guess I wanted to circle back to the comparison to Silk Road, because Silk Road was like a notably weak card, and one of the reasons is because 1 VP for every 4 victory cards was just like not a very efficient ratio. And as I mentioned, I mentioned that some of the expectations around how many victory cards you would have and how much this would be worth. But yeah, I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. Like this card is more efficient than Silk Road, but it's still the case that you're going to have to put a lot of victory cards in your deck to really make this card worthwhile. Like if you compare this to a card like Fairgrounds. So Fairgrounds does cost 1 more, but Fairgrounds getting to be worth as much as a province is reasonable on a good number of boards. And even when it isn't, it's generally going to be worth 4 points. Like almost always you can get your Fairgrounds to be worth 4 points. It's just not very difficult. Getting this to be worth 4 points is going to be a lot more difficult than Fairgrounds on a typical board. Not all boards. There will be boards where this is just worth like, crazy amounts of points. But on a typical board, this is going to be, like it's basically going to be like a duchy with some sauce, which could still be good if the sauce is good, but in terms of the amount of VP that it's generating for you, it's going to be rare that this is worth more than a duchy, I think. So yeah, there you have it. That is the new card Marchland. It's already available on Dominion.games, so you can go check it out. I haven't actually played any games with it, but probably will be soon. And yeah, so thanks for watching, and I will, I'll be playing some League again soon enough. But in terms of preview stuff, at some point, we will be talking about Rising Sun. Until then.